Hi, I'm Doug Boynton. You're listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition, where we highlight the week's news and stories happening in our region. In this week's program, there will be lots of veterans working the polls this year, and that's not a coincidence. Our Democracy at Work series continues with a look at the Vet the Vote campaign. Service members try to navigate a complicated healthcare dilemma in the wake of the 2022 Dobbs decision.
So you're not able to counsel your patients on the full scope of medical care because of misunderstanding and stigma.
And it's the 50th anniversary of the high-flying Old Dominion Men's Basketball Championship. We'll take you back to that magical run. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. The Department of Energy held this year's DOE to the People Conference in Hampton. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports on how they brought the juice to the region.
Neelam Azad, Vice President for Research at Hampton, says being chosen to host the second ever DOE to the People Conference signifies the university's strengthening role in the energy sector and draws national visibility to the peninsula.
We are developing diverse leaders and they can directly impact clean energy, aviation, many other fields. It's mainly about the students.
The conference brought participants from 17 Department of Energy labs to campus and one Hampton aviation student into the sky in an electric airplane. It also brought Hampton a seat at the table with DOE representatives and an opportunity to weigh in on new opportunities for research collaborations. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
Coastal North Carolina communities are getting a boost thanks to a multi-million-dollar renewable energy project from East Carolina University and UNC Chapel Hill. WUNC's Brianna Atkinson reports.
Researchers from the two universities will focus on improving marine technology in the town of Nags Head. One aspect the project will address is the area's storm response. Eric Wade is part of ECU's research team and works out of the Outer Banks. He says the recent destruction Helene caused in the western part of the state points to how necessary weather preparedness is.
Those communities were pretty much cut off from the rest of the state. And those are similar threats that we face here on the Outer Banks.
Wade says the project could lead to a range of recovery gadgets, from desalination devices for drinking water to wave-powered devices that can produce electricity. The project will last for 5 years and includes other research sites led by the University of Michigan and Virginia Tech. I'm Brianna Atkinson.
In 2022, the nonpartisan We the Veterans started a critical homeland mission: get more election workers. Since then, their Vet the Vote program has signed up more than 100,000 veterans and their family members to work the polls across the country. In this week's Democracy at Work from the Virginia Center for Investigative Journalism at WHRO, Navy vet Julie Hendricks explains why becoming a poll worker is an extension of her civic values.
As we start the class today, I just want to say thank you for signing up to be an election officer. It is important work that you guys do. You all really are the front line of democracy, you could say.
I am doing poll working training for the first time. I have never been a poll worker and involved in politics other than I've called into my fair share of city council meetings. I realized that the local level, the community level is where things get done. My name is Julie Hendricks. I am 44 years old. I'm a Navy veteran and I'm also a Navy spouse. I've got 2 kids, 8 and 10, and I live in Falls Church, Virginia. And I am the Director of Operations at We the Veterans and Military Families. Our largest program is Vet the Vote. And this is a program that we nationally recruit veterans and military service members to be poll workers. The genesis was the lack of poll workers in 2020. There was a real need. And so the founders were trying to figure out how can we get our veteran community involved in a way that we're promoting positive patriotism, positive civic engagement. So in 2022, the organization recruited over 63,000 people to work the polls. And this year, we have gone over 140,000 people to register to become poll workers in their local districts. It's also letting America know that there's this group of trusted individuals, because veterans are generally a very well-trusted population in the country. And it's letting people know, look, these trusted individuals are the ones who are actually working the polls.
Today's Justice Department indictments alleging ongoing Russian efforts to spread disinformation come just 2 months before Election Day. Moscow's attempts to interfere in U.S. and other elections are nothing new, though their tactics and strategy are constantly evolving.
I wasn't really thinking about all the things that really go into after you graduate from the Naval Academy. I definitely want to be a helicopter pilot. With a helicopter, the kind of camaraderie when you're in the aircraft and you're with your air crewman and your co-pilot and you're working together, that just appealed to me. I wanted to make sure that I'd be doing something, again, whether it was through volunteer effort or not, where I could stay kind of connected to people coming together, working as a team. When I was growing up, my dad would take me to go vote, and he would never tell me who he was voting for. Election Day has always been almost like this little holiday. Now I appreciate the fact that it wasn't about any type of candidate. He was really teaching me, you just got to get out and vote no matter what. And so I have noticed it is hard to get people to want to engage with voting in some circumstances. I think a lot of people, one, they think their vote doesn't matter, or two, with the kind of polarism and dissonance that is in our country right now, people just say, oh, I can't pay attention to that. And I get that. And at the same time, we all care about something, right? I hope that I can tell them about this experience and tell them kind of what I've learned, and whether it's a trust thing or just conveying the importance thing, sway some more people to go to the polls. I'm also very nerdy about elections, and I'm just truly excited to be a part of it. I wake up and I'm like, it's voting day, and it's just, not everyone gets to do it, right? Not all countries get to have an election day. And so it's a special thing.
For VCIJ at WHRO, I'm Lou Hansen.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, are you feeling lucky? The Norfolk Casino project finally broke ground this week. But first, it's not just names on ballots in Virginia this election season. Voters will see at least one question. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson walks us through the questions that don't require you to know any candidate names.
Chesapeake voters have a special question at the end of their ballots about curbside recycling. City leaders decided over the summer to ask voters what they wanted to do about the discontinued city service. City Manager Chris Price described how Chesapeake will use the results.
The thing the referendum would trigger would be conversations with council about here were the results of the referendum and here's how to move forward.
All voters in Virginia will decide on a constitutional amendment about expanding a tax exemption to spouses of deceased military service members. Currently, Virginia allows a property tax exemption for the spouses of military members who were killed in action. The proposed amendment this year would change the state constitution to extend that exemption to spouses of military members who died while on active duty. Northern Virginia Delegate Kathy Tran carried the legislation needed to turn it into a constitutional amendment. On her website, she says the change makes military benefits more equitable. Tran's description says the amendment would cover the families of service members who die in training or operational accidents. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
And we should mention Accomack County Schools as a member of HRETA, which holds the license to the WHRO stations. Military doctors are largely prohibited from performing abortions. In the 5 years before the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, they performed fewer than 100. That leaves service members almost entirely reliant on private clinics in states where abortion remains legal. WHRO's Steve Walsh visited one in Danville for the American Homefront Project.
At a women's choice clinic in Danville, Virginia, they leave a journal on the table for clients to offer their thoughts to the people who come after them.
I can tell you this much. You will get through this. You have made the best choice for you in your circumstances, and you have a whole lot of life left to experience and enjoy.
Clinic manager Danielle Floyd says it's another way to build community.
Let them know they're not alone, and that's a really big thing for us here, is you are not alone.
The Danville Clinic opened in February as a reaction to shifting state laws. It's in rural Virginia, just minutes from the border of North Carolina, which restricted access to abortion last year. Jacksonville, Florida had been their busiest clinic, just minutes from the Naval Air Station. When Florida's 6-week ban went into effect in May, women headed north, says Amber Gavin, spokesperson for the clinics.
In Danville, about 50 to 75% of our patients are traveling from out of state. Some are from Georgia, many are from Florida. Basically, all the states that are beneath Virginia, folks are traveling here.
Women in the military are largely left to navigate this changing system on their own. The Hyde Amendment has been inserted into federal defense bills since the 1970s. It restricts abortion on military bases to cases of rape, incest, or where the life of the mother is at stake. Military doctors perform few abortions. The language impacts both patients and their military doctors, says Dr. Tony Marengo, a former Navy lieutenant commander.
There was some lapse, I believe, in their family planning training, because they had mentors who were told, oh, we can't even talk about abortion. And so you're not able to counsel your patients on the full scope of medical care because of misunderstanding and stigma.
Marengo was the first family planning OBGYN in the military as a civilian at the Naval Hospital in San Diego. She left the Naval Hospital in 2018 to become the chief medical officer for Planned Parenthood in San Diego.
And I felt very stifled. Even as a civilian working in a military organization, I could not speak freely. I could not write op-eds. I could not advocate as much as I wanted to for the patients I was taking care of.
With military doctors performing so few abortions, the task falls on providers in states like Virginia, which haven't imposed more restrictive laws. Clinics are straining under the influx of new patients. Amy Pasqua, director of the Hampton Roads Reproductive Justice League in Virginia, says they initially saw a large jump in donations in 2022 after Dobbs.
We are struggling to keep up because the demand has not decreased. After, all the fanfare of it, donations have definitely dropped off. So as a fund, we're definitely struggling.
The group helps women pay for the procedure, travel, and helps connect women with providers, including those coming from around the country, including military clients.
Now we have all these military personnel coming over to seek health care. No, this isn't sustainable.
Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Sharon Arana leads Sword Athena, an Air Force group that looks at barriers women face in the military, including access to abortion. Their work led to some of the changes put in place by the Pentagon after Dobbs, including the policy that allows women to take leave to find care on their own.
Right now they're saying the best we can do is get you to an outside clinic, right? And they have basically washed their hands of us, of women like me, saying that, yeah, well, go find it yourself, and here's a train ticket.
She wants Congress to end the Hyde Amendment, but efforts to remove it from the most recent annual defense bill were unsuccessful.
That was WHRO Steve Walsh, and this story was produced by the American Homefront Project, a public media collaboration that reports on American military life and veterans.
This is WHRO's Weekly Edition. Remember, for any stories you've missed, you can visit us on the WHRO smartphone app or all social media platforms.
Boyd Gaming and the Pamunkey Indian tribe broke ground on their Norfolk casino in a ceremony Wednesday, and they say they'll be spending a lot more to build it. They're not shy about throwing around more cash than expected to build the thing. WHRO's Ryan Murphy was there.
Boyd President Keith Smith says while the group doesn't have the finalized designs or building permits, they're confident.
We wouldn't be here today kicking off the project if we were uncomfortable with where we were at. So we're looking forward to having a great project, a $750 million world-class casino resort on this site in a few years, and the rest will be history.
That's the first time in years that anyone's cited a $750 million investment for the long-simmering project. That was the Pamunkeys' original pitch in 2018, before the scope of the project was scaled down as the state legalized casino gambling and competitors popped up. Boyd said 6 weeks ago it would spend somewhere around $500 million. It's not clear what the extra $250 million will be for. Ryan Murphy, WHRO News.
50 years ago, the Old Dominion Monarchs men's basketball team brought the school its first national championship in any team sport. Their intense, lightning-fast offense and smothering defense captivated Norfolk while propelling them to legendary heights in Division II basketball. WHRO's Connor Worley takes us through that season and the legacy the team left behind.
Old Dominion basketball coach Sonny Allen staggered into the visiting locker room inside Crenshaw Gym in Ashland. His squad trailed Randolph-Macon by 20 points off the back of missed shots, sloppy turnovers, and a raucous road environment.
It's the first game that I ever played in where you didn't have to be out of bounds to pass the ball in. There was no room to step out of bounds. You got both feet out of bounds and you feel somebody pressing up against you. You tell a referee, hey man, I can't. He said, well, you do whatever you can do.
That's center Wilson Washington. He and his teammates rolled into the locker room dejected at halftime. Guard Joey Carruthers sat on the bench waiting for Coach Allen's frustration.
He basically came in and said, get your man-to-man assignments from Coach Woolen. We're going man-to-man the second half. When the game's over, get on the bus. We're going back to Norfolk.
Allen told his players, either you're winning this game or you're not. Decide in this room.
And he left the locker room.
They came out of the half pressing hard and continuously pushing the ball. They incrementally sliced the lead in the second half to force overtime. Then despite Washington and backup forwards Tommy Street and Gray Eubank fouling out, Old Dominion managed a second overtime. They proved their mettle and finished off Randolph-Macon 86-85 in a pivotal game that decided home court advantage for the regional playoffs. The Virginian Pilot dubbed the game Mayhem in a Matchbox. That mid-February game distilled and bottled the essence of the 1974-75 Monarchs, relentless effort and intensity. And that whole halftime speech, it was one of Allen's classic attempts to motivate the team, says forward Jeff Furman.
It was all a ploy on his part. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's like, what do I got to lose here? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to motivate him just like this. Well, it was an unbelievable game.
After a shaky start to the 1974-75 season, a loss at Dayton and 1-point win against Biscayne, the Monarchs settled into their identity. It was a fast-paced, wear-you-down speed that lit up the scoreboard, says Carol Hudson, the team's manager.
Sonny Allen fast break was kind of innovative back in those days. We could organize fast break. So the fans loved it.
Allen's offensive system was predicated on pushing the ball up the floor in constant movement in the half court to score quickly. Defensively, the Monarchs pressed teams and guarded every inch of the floor. Allen's son Billy helped the team as a high school freshman. He says ODU's pace broke teams down physically.
They put so much pressure on opposing teams that it kind of threw the opposing teams off their game plan because they would work so hard to get back on defense and stop the break that it would wear them down and completely take them out of their original game plan.
The schemes accentuated Carruthers' speed.
In Sonny's system, that was paramount. I mean, you had to be able to get the ball down the court as quickly as possible.
It allowed Washington to take advantage of his height and leaping ability. He'd grab a rebound and quickly find the outlet pass to push the ball up the floor.
To slow us down, you had to slow me down, and I'm going to get my 12, 15, 20 rebounds. And every last one of them, I don't get rebounds and take photos with it.
Opponents were required to play their best to win.
So you got Wilson in the middle, and then the guards we had there put a lot of pressure on the opponent.
Practices were relentless scrimmaging affairs where the players pushed each other. Players like Eubank, Street, Jay Roundtree, Dave Moyer, and Oliver Purnell pushed everyone in practice. They sacrificed potential starting roles at other schools to come off the bench at Old Dominion.
So if you could execute in practice the fast break and your press, then you got to a game and the other team didn't know what you were doing. It made it a little bit easier.
Old Dominion went on to win 9 of their next 11 games. That included an 84-73 win over California to win the Kiwanis Classic. Washington joined the team after sitting out a year due to transfer rules. He played his first game during the streak, a 101-79 win over Bloomsburg. After a 3-game skid in January, the Monarchs quickly corrected their issues and peeled off 10 wins to close the regular season, including the double overtime mayhem at Randolph-Macon. The winning streak, in part, was due to the overwhelming advantage that the Monarchs had at the ODU Fieldhouse, the school's home before Chartway Arena. The tightly packed arena held about 5,000 people who made it their mission to deafen each other and overwhelm the visitors. Fans smashed together one thing in particular to disorient opponents:
These wooden blocks.
Those wooden blue 2x4 blocks.
Those blocks that were blue and white.
And they used to bang these blocks.
When you would have 5,200 people there, all with those wooden blocks, and the fast break going, and the band going, and it was pretty darn electric.
The Monarchs rode that home court electricity all the way through the South Atlantic Regional Playoffs, where they dismantled Baltimore 95-72, and once again beat Randolph-Macon in the regional finals, this time 83-75. Finally, in March 75, Old Dominion arrived by plane in Evansville, Indiana for the national tournament. They blew past North Dakota 78-62 and Tennessee State 77-60 in the opening rounds to set up a championship bout with New Orleans. The championship game was a back-and-forth affair.
That game came down to both teams were tired, and it was like survival of the fittest.
Washington had a strong first half with 19 points, but was stymied in the second after New Orleans double-teamed him. He finished with just 21 points.
I wish I could have gotten the ball, done a little more in the second half. And it's been so long now, I don't know if they made a brilliant adjustment, because with 19 first half points, obviously they needed to make some kind of adjustment.
Old Dominion led 76-74 with 7 seconds remaining. Joey Carruthers stepped to the free throw line for a 1-and-1 opportunity and a chance to seal a win. The first shot went up, and it clanked off the front iron.
Wilbur Holland got the rebound, dribbled length of the court, went up for a shot in the lane to tie the game, and Oliver Purnell was right in his face, and he missed it, and we won.
They had just clinched the championship, but that miss still sticks with Carruthers all these years later.
That miss, it's I'm not going to say it's haunted me, because we won he missed a shot, we won the game. But it's something that I'll remember my entire life.
The team sprinted out on the court, jumped, and cut down the nets to cap off a remarkable season. Washington won the tournament's Most Outstanding Player award. Here is Coach Allen interviewed in the locker room right after the game.
Well, Coach, what you got there?
This is championship ball. It's a great feeling, and I think we deserve it. We came a long way. We won 25 ball games, and the kids have worked hard. The fans have supported us, and we won 15 in a row. We deserve to be national champ.
The real celebration began when they got back to Norfolk.
Toilet paper everywhere.
We come out of the tunnel and all that. Coach Allen's got the trophy, and there's just a throng of people into the airport lobby.
There's probably 2,000 people at the airport waiting for us. So they had a celebration right there.
Shortly after the championship, Sonny Allen decided to leave for a job at Division I Southern Methodist. He made it a point to not recruit his Old Dominion players to his new school.
But Joey and Furr and Wilson were all just sophomores. He just said, I just wouldn't feel right taking them right now.
Asked about the team's legacy 50 years later, Washington put it emphatically.
We had fun, and we've been champions all of our adult life. And can't change that, all right? Cannot change that.
Old Dominion plans to honor the 1974-75 team at a home game later this season. Connor Worley, WHRO News.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from Nick McNamara, Ryan Murphy, Michelle Hankerson, and Steve Walsh. WUNC's Brianna Atkinson, Lou Hansen with VCIJ, also Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder, you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed, and you can get your news updates at WHRO.org and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Doug Boynton.